Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Gamer Logic. I'm Mike Murtis, Unleaded Logic, and today we are reviewing Cybernator for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Cybernator is one of those games I first picked up a long time ago on one of those small mom and pop shops that don't last too long. At least in the 90s for us, Funkoland was the place to go for video games. So anytime a mom and pop shop popped up for video games, it didn't last too long. But Cybernator was one of those that I actually picked up at a mom and pop shop, and they had it on their demo display. And I picked it up and I was playing it, and I was just absolutely enthralled with the gameplay and the stages, and I got it for a pretty good deal back then. I think it was only like 20 bucks. But I was going through my Super NES games yesterday, just trying to find some ones I haven't played in a while and some that I haven't beat. And I pulled out Cybernator, and I couldn't remember all the stages, and I was wondering if it still was as good as I thought it was back in the day. So I popped it in, and 3 continues later I beat it, and I can definitely say it's still that awesome game that I enjoy from a long time ago. The basic premise of Cybernator is there's 2 rival factions fighting each other, and it's for like the last fossil fuel on the planet Earth. And the faction that you're on is just finally starting to turn the war around, and they're kind of launching their final assault against this rival faction. The game, for the most part, starts on this battle cruiser, and this battle cruiser launches the assault suits, which your character is in one of the assault suits, and that's how all the missions are performed. You usually are launching off this thing into whatever it may be. For example, the first stage is actually ramming the battlecraft into this space station, kind of this construction space station. And as the battlecraft smashes into this thing and breaks its way through, it launches the assault suits, and you begin your attack on it, the construction site from the inside. The second stage has you going through an asteroid field, so you're blasting off the battlecraft, and you have this huge rocket pack behind you, and you're dodging and shooting all these asteroids, trying to find this like mobile weapons artillery. There's just a nice variety of stages. I mean, later on, you're attacking another battleship, so you're fighting on the outside of the ship and the inside of the ship, and you're desperately trying to escape it after you blow its core. There's a level where you're actually falling down into a planet, and you're burning up in the atmosphere, and you're fighting enemies. There's just really cool, intense moments, and a lot of the mission stuff is timed, so like when you're fighting a boss, you may be fighting a boss and there may be something else going on too. Like you're fighting a boss and these anti-aircraft guns are shooting at your battlecraft and they're blowing it down and damaging it. So the kind of end result of each stage can be completely different depending on what you do. So that's pretty cool. Graphics wise, this still holds up to be a pretty nice game. The backgrounds are very well detailed. The graphics and all the enemies and your character look very cool. There's a lot of graphical text as far as communications going back from your battlecraft to you that kind of brings in the story. One interesting thing about that, though, I'll bring up before I forget. The US version is edited compared to the Japanese version. The Japanese version actually featured like text boxes and graphical portraits next to the characters, so you can kind of get an idea of who was talking. It gave you a better picture and visualization of who was saying what and who was who. The US version doesn't do that. And one other very important notice is the president of the rival faction that you fight or see at the end of the game, in the US version, he's just mentioned briefly. You never really see him. In the Japanese version, they skip this in the US version entirely. You actually blow through the wall to get to the president, and he blows his brains out. They edited this in the US version. You don't see it, so you only see it in the Japanese version, which there is a video on YouTube that has all the differences on there that I'll be sure to post a link of on the YouTube page description for this video. But check it out, it's definitely cool. But that's graphics. Gameplay wise, I mean, you fight a variety of bosses. Like I said, the stages are cool. You build up different power-ups on your weapons. Like, for example, you have a machine gun, a missile launcher, a laser, and I believe there's one more secret weapon you can get, which is napalm. But you pick up kind of these power chips, and they upgrade your weapon to more and more power. So, you know, your laser can be this gigantic laser beam that'll just decimate people as you go through. Sound-wise, I mean, it's a game by Konami, so the music is good, it's pretty catchy, and the sound effects also sound pretty awesome too. It really adds into the overall package because graphically, explosions are going everywhere and the sound effects just match. So The gameplay, the graphics, the sound, it really draw you in to make an interesting game, and then they throw the story elements in, and it just makes it that much cooler. Control is easy too. You have your button that switches your weapons, that jumps, that controls your rocket pack, that does your dashing. It seems like a lot, but really, they really thought the control out really well for this game. And like I said, I beat it to completion and really enjoyed it again, just like I did when I originally bought it. I highly recommend picking this up if you have a Super Nintendo, because you get this pretty cheap. I actually sold my original copy of this, which was a mistake. That or it got lost, I'm not sure. But I picked this back up for pretty cheap, like $3 or $4 with the instruction booklet. Of course, if you don't have Super NES, you can always do the emulation thing and check it out that way. And there are a couple sequels and prequels, I believe, for this game. The sequel to it, I believe, was released for Saturn, and unfortunately it was never brought to America. So trying to play it will be a little tough because it's in Japanese. And from what I played, it is really hard, and I don't know if I'm missing something because I'm not able to read the text or what. But this game was brought over. It's awesome, even if the scenes and stuff were edited out for it. The gameplay is cool. Highly recommend the pickup. I give this a 5 out of 5. So that was another episode of Gamer Logic. You just saw the Cybernator review, and that is the second review for the month of July. And we got one more for the month before we're done with the 3 episodes of Gamer Logic for this month. So keep on watching, folks. If you have any other suggestions for game reviews, let me know and I'll be sure to check them out and hopefully review them for you. Peace, folks. Bye.